Hi, Julia, Be Well Fitness. As a core exercise specialist, I do help women, and I mostly work with women 40 plus, to connect with their deep core, which includes a lot more than just uh, countless crunches and sit ups, also a lot more than just pulling the navel in toward the spine. Today, I'm going to talk about another pattern that I see a lot in my female clients and myself including, which is the dominance of external obliques. So that's why when the deep core works in the most integrated and balanced way, everything benefits. Front, side, back, and pelvic floor, especially the abdominal muscles here. So like if you are also a person who has some pelvic floor issues, maybe just like pee when you sneeze or lift, or doing some activities like running or jumping, or perhaps you have some separation in the linea alba, creating that kind of belly gap, so diastasis. So you may want to just notice if this is one of your patterns. And again, the pattern I'm going to be talking about is the external oblique dominance and how you can determine if you are that person. So I'm going to give you a few tips. So tip number one, we're going to try to find the infrasternal angle. So you're going to walk your fingers on your sternum, just kind of going down, and then notice those floating ribs when they start kind of getting off here to the sides. And you're just going to place your fingers there, and you're going to find your intersternal angle. So, and mine is narrow. And that's going to be one of the symptoms that you do have uh, external oblique dominance. All right. So, another one that sometimes when we hear a phrase such as drop your ribs, a lot of times so what happens, we don't just drop the ribs, which is more like a relax your ribs. We kind of do something like this. And if you look at your overall posture, it just kind of gives you a little bit more kyphosis, a little bit, right? So as I'm dropping my ribs and my lower core, which is usually not very strong for most of my female clients, is not very strong to counterbalance that powerful, pull. It's actually going to create more pull of the ribs instead of drop. So if the lower core is not counterbalancing that whole pressure, all the pressure goes into the front of the abdomen. So yeah, and if you feel like you have a belly pooch, right, you may want to, and you have this upper core muscles that are pretty developed and kind of create that sense of slim posture, then you may just to kind of ask yourself, okay, so I'm pretty dominant here, then how's my lower core? So most likely it's going to be weak. And that's where you might have to spend time to activate. Plus, there are other parts, but just to make it simple. So again, if you're just kind of, instead of just relaxing the ribs and you want to kind of pull them down, and that a lot of times happens with those people, those women, since I work with women, kind of do this a lot. So when you tell them drop the ribs, and they just like, huh, sort of like that. Again, notice what happens here. So that if you are a person who, let's say, maybe going to the gym and lift weights, so a lot of times I see those like big forceful exhalations and they kind of happen again like this. And then it creates that same pressure. It's pressure down on the pelvic floor and pressure out into the abdominals, which again, there is a linea alba here, which is a connective tissue. And if you're constantly doing that, and that's your strategy, which mostly your strategy probably throughout the day as well, then you're going to create just more and more force. And again, if you have that pelvic floor situation, you might notice if this is your strategy because the pressure goes down. And if the lower core is not counterbalancing, again, this is going to create some imbalances. Also in your overall appearance, so if you stand in front of the mirror and pull your shirt out, you may see quite a bit of developed muscles here. So like they are pretty developed. So then you know, ooh, yes. And again, if you look at your lower belly, it might be pushing out, or your lower core is just simply weak. You know, you're overpowering too much here and not enough here. All right, just a quick tip for now. So if you are that person who like really take those forceful exhalations and overpowering with that, you may just start creating this sound. So when you exhale, you're gonna make a sound. So again, you're gonna be inhaling front, side, back, three-dimensional breath. And ideally, what you want to feel with that is that lift that comes from the pelvic floor, lower core, and goes all the way up through the crown of the head. And it's just very smooth, soft, slow, controlled exhale. So we go through the lower core, mid core, upper core, where the ribs are just gently knitting in without going that for that force. And it's going to be a lot of mental work as well. So I know since it's my pattern, like I'm constantly working on it and constantly catching myself overpowering with my external obliques at the sake of the lower core and midsection, the deep transverse abdominis muscles. Okay, so you have to do a little bit of mental work. Just kind of remind yourself, changing your habit. Also, what you want to consider is doing some thoracic mobility work. So perhaps working a little bit more on lengthening without pushing your ribs out, creating the control from deeper transverse abdominals. So you can do some foam rolling or whatever mobility work you might be already doing. Just kind of start paying attention to how you do that. And what else? One more I can give you. So that's usually works better on a chair. So if you sit on the chair and you're actually going to go into that kind of slumpy position, but you hopefully have that chair supporting your back. So like right now, I don't have it supported, and I don't know if you can see it necessarily, but let's say that I'm there on this in a slumping position, right? And my upper core and those external obliques, they don't necessarily have to work, right? And now I'm just gonna try to work on that ha sound and see if I can really focus on my lower core activation. So pulling my pelvic bones in, drawing that string in and up without really overpowering through here. And with the back support of your chair, you should be okay to relax this portion and work on that lower core activation. All right, so hopefully that helps. Again, this one was about external oblique dominance that creates pressure down and pressure out, right? So one, you can check your infrasternal angle. Two, notice if it's kind of like you're dropping down of your ribs, which is pulling forcefully down. Notice if you're using that forceful exhalation that really starts and kind of dominates from here. And then what else? Whatever else I said, number 4. And then you have your tips. So change your breath, increase your mobility in the thorax, and also increase your strength, the activation through your lower core. So yeah, that's your deep core connection and minimizing the pressure.